Hello, you're listening to the Ace Up Your Sleeve podcast. My name is Reichen Young, a student of the Acting Company for Excellence and host of the Ace Up Your Sleeve podcast. Today we are talking to Hayley Honescko. Miss Hayley started with NTPA as a student in 2014 and graduated from the NTPA Academy in 2020. She just graduated from the University of Texas, Dallas, where she obtained a BA in Visual and Performing Arts with a Communications concentration. Miss Hayley has directed many shows for NTPA, including Aladdin Kids, Willy Wonka Kids, Frog and Toad Kids, the first show that I actually did, and Seussical Kids. Welcome, Miss Hayley.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's an honor to have you on the show. We've been wanting to interview you for a while. Okay, so to begin, you started with NTPA several years ago as a student performing on stage, and now you are an NTPA director. What is it about NTPA that brought you back to the organization, and what was the transition like from student to director?
Of course, great question. So I left NTPA at a weird time. My last show was in 2020.
Yep.
It was in masks. The show I performed before that was entirely online. We performed Taming of the Shrew. Actually, we called it Taming of the Zoom because it was on Zoom. And so I left NTPA at a really weird time. It kind of left some open-ended things for me. I didn't really get that closure that as a young student at NTPA, you strive for and you look for. And so being a director, I left for a while and I was kind of bitter towards theater, if I'm being honest. And
interesting.
Yeah, and I came back at the beginning of 2021, and I sat down with some of the management at the time and asked, can I get back involved? Because I missed being here so much, and they were just like, take any opportunity. So I started with summer camps, teaching, private lessons, anything that just got me back into creating theater. And it was a really healing experience for me.
Wow.
To leave 2020 being that student that didn't get the closure I wanted, and then finding my love for teaching that I actually enjoyed even more so than performing was watching my students succeed.
Of course.
And so I ended up just loving teaching, which I knew I would. I was an ACE member myself. Woo! Yes, I was an ACE member myself. I helped start we used to do locations of ACEs, so I helped start the Frisco ACE group when that was a thing. There were several things that I did. Actually, I studied communications. I was the communications officer for the ACEs for a long time.
Wow.
And so interning with the ACEs, learning those leadership skills, directly impacted how I teach and all of that stuff. So it was one of those, it was a long time coming that I came back as a director. But yeah, so it was this, I was a student. I loved being a student. I left and I wanted more. I came back and I ended up loving teaching even more than I did performing.
What's something that you really looked forward to while coming back to this theater that lived completely up to expectations?
That's a great question. I think trying things my own way.
Oh.
I worked with a lot of incredible directors, but I talked with another director recently, and she said the directors are always the ones that are critiquing the rehearsal environment, that are critiquing their fellow actors, even though they probably shouldn't. And as she was telling me this, I realized I do that. I would do that, and I would critique the environment or take a note from my director and be like, I'm going to apply it this way, or I'm going to look at it differently. And so I like that I got to create that rehearsal culture for my students and kind of do things the way that I pick things from all the directors that I learned from, all of the directors that impacted me, cherry pick my favorite things, leave out my least favorite things, although there weren't a lot of least favorite things, but cherry pick the best things and kind of become that and be for these students what I had when I was growing up. And so that was something that I was just really excited about and still continue to love to this day.
Wow. And so you truly got to give the best experience to your students from just your own personal experience. That's amazing. I really, really enjoy that. I love when also just adults do that in general, because there's so many adults out there that just push kids off. It's oh, it's okay. You can just go do whatever you want. And I love that you've listened to your experiences when you were here as a student, and that you've also applied that to you being a director. That's very admirable. You also attended and graduated from the NTPA Academy. Can you tell us what students learn at the Academy and why it's important that an alternative to traditional school exists for theater kids?
Of course. So my last name is Honescko now, but my maiden name is Stone. And so Deanna Stone was one of the founders of the NTPA Academy, my mom. So I had a very unique experience. I was a part of the pilot program, which we did before the Academy started. So it was the kind of like focus group launch, like soft launch of this program. And then I was in the inaugural class. So I started with the Academy and got through its rocky times as we were trying to figure out what it was supposed to be.
Of course.
But the education I got there was absolutely amazing. To some degree, I think it was the best parts of the Academy because it was so raw and so like new, and we were just excited to be there and all wanted to be there. I also had a unique experience because I started as a homeschool student. So
of course.
So a lot of students left their public or private schools to come to the Academy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started as a homeschool student and then took this as like in addition to what I was learning at homeschool. So I loved what I learned here. My favorite classes were my acting classes. There were so many things that I learned that I would go out and talk to professionals in the world, and they're like, I didn't learn that till my second or third year of college, and the fact that you're getting that at a young level. You know, we were talking about Uta Hagen, and we were talking about Meisner and Stanislavski, and so all of that education in acting theory and professional development and going out into the industry, like, just so many wonderful skills that like I took with me and I applied to my directing. And one of the reasons that I was able to graduate from high school and start as a director so soon was because of all of the things that I learned at the NTPA Academy. And it is a great experience for kids who are looking for something, looking for that next step, looking to pursue acting. And it's interesting because it's a university style model, which means you can pick the classes you want to excel in and the things that you want to engage in. And so it gives these students a unique opportunity to some degree, live more like a college life at a younger age. And so picking the things you want to focus on, choosing the classes, choosing your concentrations, if you will, expanding on the skills that you really want to establish while also getting your education in all the things that the state mandates.
Yes, that's also very important.
Super, super important. And so you're able to customize your theater learning experience for that, which was really cool for me. There were certain things that I was not as into. I'm not the best dancer out there. I am not the tech kid that I want to be. But I loved learning about acting theory and theater appreciation and all of those things from the Academy.
So almost like as the Collegiate Pursuits program has like just wanted to provide like a better glimpse like into like the college, or not just the college, but just the overall like what it would be as a career. You can almost say that the NTPA Academy has done something similar in the fact that it's like preparing you for like what classes will be like, and like you can manage your own schedule, but also you have to manage your own schedule because college can like be such like a kick to the face, because especially for like people who aren't at all educated on like how to properly like schedule, or how to properly like also like just to like limit yourself like when it comes to spending or like time management. But you could almost say that the NTPA Academy, just as you just said, has done similar things like that. Like it helps you really like manage your time, and also like gives you a feel from like, walking from class to class, or just doing overall things like that. You're now an alumni at the University of Texas, Dallas, and you have a degree in visual and performing arts. As a theater kid myself, who is about to embark on my own collegiate career, I am very curious how you decided what to major and study in, and what advice would you give to high school theater kids who are about to graduate?
That's the question. That's something that I struggled with or just grappled with, like being in college and stuff. I think, so I was drawn to communication first because of my experience studying acting theory. So it's a visual and performing arts degree, but it focuses on communication, which is a social science as well as an art form, because it's the art of rhetoric while also understanding human behavior. So I was drawn to this path because of what I learned in acting class. I read a book called The Actor and the Target by Declan Donnellan. Oh. And it was an acting 4 that we learned, and it talked about how the target, or the audience, or whoever you're talking to in a scene, is the key to unleashing your character and your characterization of your character.
Interesting.
And so, but what it taught me was creating an audience-centric message. So crafting a message, crafting something to speak to the audience. In the same way, studying things like a character's given circumstances or something like that, that impacted how I understood human behavior and their relationships. And so I was fascinated by understanding more about that. And that's what I loved so much about my time at the Academy in general, was learning about that. So that's where I was drawn to communication. And so I would just say, like, find something you're passionate about and find that unique thing for you. There's no one right way to pursue college. On average, undergraduate students change their major 3 and 4 times.
Exactly.
It's not going to be a cookie cutter exactly what you expect it to look like, nor should it be, and you shouldn't feel like you have to. I think allow your education to guide you, find new things, take new classes that you wouldn't necessarily do. If you're somewhat interested in it, try it out, because you never know where you might land within that. And just enjoy your education. Some of the classes that weren't in my degree plan that I took for fun ended up being some of my favorite classes and made me a more well-rounded person.
Of course.
And so go out there and experience things. If you're a theater major, go take an accounting class. You never know
Exactly.
if that could come in handy in the future. Or try out new things, but don't limit yourself because of what you think it should look like. Allow yourself to define what that looks like as you go along.
Interesting. And that's also very important, going back to what you said earlier about being a well-rounded human being. And we actually have talked about that in a couple of other episodes. While like finding like what you really love is also very important, it's also important that you have just an overall efficiency in life as well, because while like dancing and singing, or like even like drawing and like, I don't know, like painting or something is very important, it's also important that you should know, I'm kind of going back to what I said, like how to manage a schedule, like financial means and all that stuff. And so I do think that is something that especially like kids of like our generation really need to focus on, is that like, yeah, you're going to have to go to college and you're going to really, really have to figure out what's going on. And so I'm really glad you said that, because that's going to help a lot of people.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Just allow education to be a continuous journey, not a stopping point. Just allow it to continue to expand and continue your knowledge.
Wow, what a great quote. That was incredible. So, as a director, can you give us a glimpse into what goes on behind the scenes and how to prepare for a show before even students audition?
Yeah, so I mainly work with the younger kids. I've directed 16 K through 5th grade shows.
Wow.
I'm about to direct my first junior show, but
woo!
Yeah, woo. So I mainly work with the younger kids. So my preparation looks a little different. I end up thinking a lot about how I'm going to manage the classroom. Usually I get a large number of students, so how am I going to double up these roles? How am I going to cast these things? What am I looking for in students? But it really is, what lessons am I trying to teach them? I focus a lot on the life drama connection, which is what in the script reflects what these students are going to learn about their life and what skills it's going to teach them. And, you know, if we're doing something silly like, I don't know, Frozen or Finding Nemo, like what lessons can they learn from this that will help them, and what do I want to focus on as a director? It becomes less about how am I going to stage this number, what is the set going to look like, what is all of that. Although that's important, I kind of have it more in the back of my mind.
Of
my
course.
Focus is, how am I going to take this script and make it applicable to their life?
Of course.
I'm not focused on making them big Broadway stars at the age that they are, because they don't know what they want to be when they grow up just yet.
Precisely.
And so I'm focused on how do I take this and make it something that they will remember and take with them. And for me, I used to look at other productions and get validation of what I thought the show should look like. So I would think of a set and then be like, well, let me look at other shows and see what they've done, and then be like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. And I would adapt it to create this kind of cookie cutter show. But what I learned is, if you look at the script, see the message that you're trying to get across, a lot of that stuff will come with it. So I no longer look at other productions for validation towards what I'm staging or what I'm producing on the show for the creative elements. I look at the script, see the lessons that it pulls out, and I put the kids at the forefront and I put the students at the forefront, and don't really do too elaborate of set or costumes or anything like that. I do obviously incorporate it, but the focus is the kids and their skills and what they're learning, and then everything else is just extra stuff that we get to do with it. So that's a lot of my planning, is just brainstorming that and kind of fleshing some of that stuff out.
Wow, and how amazing is that? Like, well, like a lot of directors, I do understand, as you said, like dancing and all that is very important, but also how you just said, like really putting the kids at the forefront, like of the operation is just amazing. And like, I do think that's just really important for actors in general, is to connect real aspects of their life in order to truly become and also portray their character. Like I know, so recently I've just played like a lot of dad characters for some reason. But hey, I'm not complaining. I've loved every single one. But it's taught me like true like lessons in like empathy, or also like how, because like eventually like I am gonna be a dad at some point, and like I have to really like get these lessons kind of like into my head. And while I am gonna like read parenting books and all that stuff, it's like being on this, like being like, I don't know, like being like a Gomez to like a Wednesday. It's like, man, like my daughter's like gonna get married.
Right.
Like I have to do what's best for her, and that's what's best for me. And so like learning something like that it truly has given me just so much in life, and just you like really making that important for your like, especially like little actors who are just, they're just babies and they're still trying to like learn their way through life and find out what really is for them. That's just incredible.
Well, and if you want to nerd out a little bit,
Yes.
as an actor, as a person, you can try your best, but our brain cannot tell the difference between what's real
Yes.
in real life and what happens on stage.
Uh-huh.
So if you do something on stage, you're essentially practicing what that is like.
Exactly.
So as your example, if you're Gomez and you're talking to Wednesday, you're practicing what it's like to talk to a daughter figure and
Yes.
show that empathy. So through practicing that empathy on stage through a character, you'll be able to apply it to your life, because your brain can't tell the difference
Exactly.
between you feel that your brain feels
Yeah.
that thing, even though you recognize it's a character, your brain feels that empathy. Your brain practices what that's like. And so it is practicing life, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also applies when you're also watching a show. Like when you're watching like Les Mis, and like at the end of like the final barricade scene, you're like, oh man, like we, when like we went to go see like another NTPA production, like everybody in the crowd was like sobbing or like crying or carrying on. It's like you still feel those emotions, and you're completely right. The brain has no idea like what's reality and what's fiction.
Right.
And that's so fascinating. So you say an inspiring connection is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You say inspiring connection and confidence in actors is what's important to you. As a director, why is that?
Oh, it's the bread and butter of what I do.
Of course.
Kind of like I talked about, like the kids at the forefront and them being the focus, inspiring that confidence in them and that connection and getting them to understand those social skills is how is the whole purpose of this. At NTPA, we have our 10 characters, right?
Yep.
And those are so important to me to teach, because at the end of the day, they're not going to remember their lines. They're not going to remember everything that happened.
Exactly.
But they will remember how they felt, and they will remember the environment, and they will take with them the skills.
Absolutely.
So I have to think as a teacher, what are the things that I am giving to them that they will continue with? It's not going to be the costume. The costume will only fit them for so long. It's not
Yep.
going to be the set, because that just stays on stage for the tech weekend performances. What they're taking with them are these skills that they will use in their life forever. And I think as a student, as a former student of NTPA, that's where I am so passionate about that, because they taught the 10 characters when I was a student. I remember those 10 characters, and I was impacted by those 10 characters. I was impacted by those directors who didn't just pour into me as an actor, but poured into me as a person.
Yes.
And that's where I am so inspired to pass that on to the next generation, is I got that training and I got that love and support in becoming a better person. And I want to give that to the next generation of, it's not just about being the best performer there is out there. It's about becoming the best person that you can be. And we're going to do that through the stage today. And we're going to learn all those skills by performing a silly little play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just amazing. And so finally, what advice would you give students who want to pursue theater as a career?
So theater is a very demanding industry.
It is.
There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, I don't know, it's a very demanding industry. Be kind to yourself, because there's a lot of rejection. So be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, allow yourself to go on the journey, but also be kind to others. And I think that's so important because at the end of the day, kind of what we're talking about, yes, theater is amazing, but we tell stories for a reason. We feel stories for a reason. They're all about bettering ourselves as people, bettering other people, bettering society, continuing to tell stories. So we always have to keep in mind being kind to ourselves and being kind to others and focusing on it's a positive experience.
Yes.
Even though it's such a demanding industry, it's supposed to be this blessing and this joy that we're bringing to people. And so keep it at that. And being kind to yourself and others will take you so much farther than being the most talented whatever.
Of course.
Being kind, practicing those 10 characters, being confident is the best thing that you can do. And just don't be your own worst critic. Don't be your own worst critic. There's going to be plenty of critics out there, so don't be your own worst critic.
Absolutely. And just have fun, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Like just going on stage, singing and dancing, like it's meant to be fun. And I do feel like a lot of people forget that sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's all fun. And look at these kids that are performing shows at NTPA. They're having the time of their life.
Oh, exactly.
And we need to take that with us because that's all what it's about. Yeah.
100%. And now, Miss Hayley, it's time for the Ace Up Your Sleeve 5 Quick Questions, where we ask every guest the same 5 quick questions. You must answer every question quickly and without explanation. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Number 1, what was the name of the first show you ever performed?
Alice in Wonderland Jr.
What was your favorite show?
Seussical the Musical.
What is your favorite role?
Juliet in Romeo and Juliet.
What is your dream role?
Juliet in Romeo and Juliet.
And what is your favorite candy?
Chocolate-covered pretzels or anything that has a sweet and salty component.
Nice. I completely agree. It's a perfect flavor blend in the
Yes.
mouth. Thank you so much, Miss Hayley, for talking with us on the Ace Up Your Sleeve podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed being here.
And until next time, I'm Reichen Young. Remember, you always have a winning hand with an ace up your sleeve. The Ace Up Your Sleeve podcast is brought to you by the students of the Acting Company for Excellence at North Texas Performing Arts. This podcast was created by Reichen Young, with sound design and editing by Latham Young. NTPA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to developing the character of youth through quality performing arts education and family entertainment. Learn more about upcoming programs and events at ntpa.org.